at least as a player, it's like, let's get through the Open. And then you kind of reassess. Like there is this 3-month period before the next year starts where whether it's, switching coaches, trying something different, working on certain parts of your game, it's just and we've already seen the first penny drop straight away after the US Open with the news about Naomi Osaka splitting. And then I don't know if there's if this is just a situation that is based on proximity and familiarity. I don't think we've gotten. I don't think Naomi's come out and said, "Hey, I'm definitely working with Patrick Mouratoglou in 2025." Is that correct, JW? Are we in that we don't know?
I think you would have. I think we can confirm that. Interesting. I'll tell you an interesting story. Someone during the U.S. Open said Patrick is talking to Naomi, just so you know, this is going to happen. And I went to the Osaka camp, and it was vigorously, categorically, vehemently denied. So either the camp didn't know, or there was some real sort of behind the scenes negotiating here. But no, I mean, don't you think if that weren't true, the camp would have denied the reports and they're being photographed together on UCLA's courts? I mean, I think we can assume that's a done deal. Strange pairing, but I think that I think you said it. This is maybe not as a business model a great idea to have your culminating climax event the first week of September and then put another 60 to 90 days of tennis on the calendar. So yeah, even though the tours continue on, I'm not sure what's at stake here. And clearly a number of players have used this period of, we're eliminated from the playoffs. So we're going to play with our roster and change our offense. So you see personnel changes in September, when usually that's the kind of thing you do in the off season.
So when you asked about the Naomi coaching rumor that you had heard, or at least this, I don't even want to say rumor because you seem super solid in your source. That was before the US Open?
August 22nd, to be precise.
So way before the US Open.
But no, so someone said, "Hey, listen, you might want to check this out. Patrick is going to be Naomi's new coach." And I sort of went to the Osaka camp and said, "Listen, here's what I'm hearing. Confirm, deny, modify, clarify." And it was categorically, I mean, sometimes you get these questions of we're looking at a lot of options. Sometimes you get, "Listen, I'm begging you, please don't write this." But this was absolute flat categorical denial. And then very strangely,
it was true.
A few weeks later, it was true.
Yeah, I listen. I don't know what the other option is going into the U.S. Open, because if you're trying to keep your team together, even if you're having other conversations, I don't see the value in giving it any air before you're going to play the U.S. Open.
You mean even just having an interview, or
but also if listen,
lending to the mystery.
I might have had the relationship with a couple of journalists where I could say, I don't know what I'm doing, man. Just but I also don't want this to blow up now. So I just need some space to breathe. But if you don't have that relationship, I don't know that you can, I don't know that there's a good way to respond to that. If you know it's happening, but you still have to play the US Open. I don't know, what is okay, producer Mike, let's take our biases out of it. Player, journalist, what's your response if maybe it's happening, but you have to play the US Open and you don't want those storylines during the US Open? What do you say?
I don't know about categorically denying it, but I think ultimately, you're we're working through some things. We're always constantly analyzing everything. No. What do you say? You just channel Bill Belichick?
Okay. No. Listen, I'm okay. Now then I'm regurgitating it on this show, and I'm like, well, we asked about a coaching change. They said we're working through some things. That means a coaching change. That's...
You could rekindle the flame, though. Who knows? With a good run at the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
You guys have been watching David Tepper's football team for too long.
Good God.
What about... no, I don't know. It's a tough situation. Let me ask you another question about coaching.
Yeah.
Which is, I often think about the finance of all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be, I'm sounding like an old man here, but when you and I were starting out, I think there's some bonuses tied in, and hey, if you win a major, you get a bonus. But basically, I'm going to pay all of your expenses, and I'm going to pay you a little premium on what you would make hitting balls at the club and giving lessons. That model is completely blown up. That's completely changed. And now you can make a very nice living as a tennis coach. And there's 6-figure bonuses when your players win majors, and there's T&E tied in. We talk a lot about the changing finances of tennis and $100,000 for losing in the first round. What are the financials for a top player when you're making these kind of coaching moves? What are you setting aside? How are those deals being structured? What does it look like when it's September and you're trying to recruit a new coach?
One, I would say that there's probably a smaller percentage of players that actually know or care about the details of how a deal gets done, or what the ramifications are. Some players just like, I don't know, just get it done. Like, and then I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about finances. When I was 18, I didn't know any of how any of it went. I didn't know I couldn't have told you what my coach was being paid when I was 19. But then at 25, all of a sudden it's like, okay, you're starting to think, listen, let's all win together. Let's share in the bonuses. I want you to do such a good job that, when it happens, so I don't know. The structure could be a little bit different, but like everything else in tennis, if you're coaching someone who's a Grand Slam winner and going with those bonuses, it's much different than coaching 2 guys on tour who are ranked 90. And, all of a sudden as a coach, you're having to pick, you don't know where your schedule is going to be 6 weeks from now, where it's a lot easier to coach someone minus the eyeballs, who is a top player, and you know what your schedule is 12 months in advance. It's just scheduled out. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot more, opportunity, I think, for coaching. And now we have players that have 2 coaches, 3 coaches. A coach gets brought in, for volleys or for, mind. There's just a lot more employment going on with camps now than there used to be.
I was surprised too at the U.S. Open in the lounge. I ran into multiple sort of coaches who were out of a job, and it didn't. I think there's probably an ethics to poaching. There's probably some protocol there, but clearly there are a number of coaches who come to the U.S. Open hoping to have some conversations because this is the time in the season. And, when you don't have much of an off season the way other sports do, it seems kind of reasonable after the 4th major, when everything else has this savor of anticlimax. That's when you might want to lobby for some jobs.
Andy, you said something earlier about that. Like, now they have coaches for volleys. Now they have coaches for serves, right? Are we seeing maybe a change of the guard in the way you look at approach coaching? I mean, when you look at NFL quarterbacks, right? Like Pat Mahomes and Baker Mayfield have the same quarterback coach in the offseason. Like, wide receivers are going to wide receiver specialists and they're going to camp together. And they have guys that they kind of call during the season that aren't on the staff that they have. Are we going to maybe see a switch to that across tennis?
Yeah, I think. Well, one, I think that people can now afford more expertise, right? Like, I think people, if you want to go out and go hire someone for a couple of weeks for a specific shot, it's no longer cost prohibitive. If that wins, it's like a massive deal. Like, so to John's point, where he kind of started this with, the more there's money in tennis, it's not a club pro who's just making a little bit more and wants to see the world. It's a very dedicated profession that is full of expertise and nuance and, schedule. So I just think people can afford more. So there's no stone left unturned now, especially for the top players, just because prize money has become, a different animal, than it was even when I played not too long ago. But to John's point, before I went off on a tangent that will most certainly be edited out, the coaches hanging around the U.S. Open, I think that's incredibly smart, right? Proximity wins a lot of the time. Like, my last coach, Larry Stefanki, is a great coach, coached 4 number ones. Like, if I had to go start playing again tomorrow, I would hire Larry Stefanki. But he turned down a couple of jobs, like in the 2 years after I retired, just because he wanted to be home and there was some, personal stuff going on. And then like there's not a lot of lag time if you're, kind of past a certain age where you're not 35 and top of mind and people don't see you. So once that kind of generation goes out, I don't know that a young guy's going to go pull you in. I think proximity really, really matters. So those coaches that were hanging around the US Open, we said it kind of as a joke, but I think if I was a coach looking to pick up a bag, I think that's exactly where I would have been as well.
Yeah. It's not just coaches. It did not get the headlines of Naomi Osaka and Patrick. It did not get the headlines of Coco Gauff and Brad ending their partnership. But do you guys notice Sinner picked up two members of the Djokovic camp, the fitness coach and the physio, Marco Panici, and I'm blanking on the physiotherapist name. But that's a significant move too, not just because of recent history.
What happened to Sinner's other trainers?
Yeah, it's like, why didn't Donald Trump use his old vice president to be his new vice president when he ran in 2024?
We made it so far without you getting in there, JW. We've made so much progress. What was your first take? We'll get there, and then we'll get to kind of the part of the season that we're in, and maybe break that down a little bit from a player perspective, maybe a player perspective at different rankings as best I can tell you about it. What was your first reaction when you heard about Coco and BG splitting up?
Candidly, I think.
Yeah, no one's listening.
I'm sure you heard. No, I'm sure you heard the same chatter that I did, and this was a relationship that obviously had great success a year ago, and as tends to happen, I not how much of this is specific to the principals and how much this is just any intense relationship. It's not hardly unique to tennis within sports. Relationships can curdle a little bit and get stale. It doesn't sound like there was any bad blood, but I think at the U.S. Open, it was pretty clear that this was in its waning days. And hey, they won a major together. They had great success. I think it probably, in retrospect, it helped both of them reputationally. But I don't think this was a great shock, not just because of her results, but you sort of hear this is a sport that gets very small very fast, and you sort of hear chatter about what relationships might be fraying a bit, and I wasn't gobsmacked. What about you?
Yeah, no, I wasn't surprised by it. One, I think we need to realize like what happened. We often forget in telling stories about Coco's year this year and how maybe Wimbledon, the U.S. Open might not have gone the way that she wanted them to. And obviously the way you lose a match with 11 doubles in the third set and the whole thing, it just all kind of makes it a little weirder. But we conveniently forget that she lost first round last year in Wimbledon and was in a tailspin before her and Brad got together. And so to kind of remedy that in 2 or 3 months, have a life-changing win at the U.S. Open, regardless what happens after that, I guarantee you give both of them exactly what happened, and they'd say, hey, listen, even if we're washing our hands of it, this is a 10 out of 10. This is exactly, we brought you on, jolt of energy, different perspective, and we won a major. And I'm 20 years old still. Like it just worked. So everyone there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks and a lot of people, myself included, who said, oh, you just got to do that, and that. Great. It's harder to do. If everyone was an expert, there would be a lot more great coaches. Let's not lose in this kind of drama, gossip, whatever the product was we saw with Coco this year at the U.S. Open. Let's not lose the headline of they get together, kind of U-turn her form from last year, and oh, by the way, win the U.S. Open. Like they did what they were supposed to do. That matchup was meant to try to do something like that, and they did it very quickly. So props to them. I hope they both feel good about it. I like the way that they broke up, where they each released a statement, but it was props to the other person. It seemed very friendly, which is all you can really ask for, because it's not going to work all the time, but respect should win out, especially when you've had the success that they have. Yeah, producer Mike.
Is she in any rush to find a replacement? This time of year.
So I have no envy. I haven't talked to Coco since. I've talked to Brad a little bit. I spent some time with Brad after they had lost the U.S. Open. I don't think she has to be in a rush. JC Farrell, who I used to play juniors with, has been on that bag for months now. So it's not as if I can't go play tournaments in the Asian swing and the European swing because I have nobody. Like that's not the case, right? So I'm curious. The thing I don't know the answer to is the name brand coaches, right? Whether it's a high profile former player, whether it's, a Brad Gilbert who has these, splashy storylines with a number of other former Slam winners. Is that something she still is going to want to go towards? Or is it a technical guru, someone that doesn't want to travel all the time, like a Rick Macy, right? Who's responsible for, the technique on, with Venus and Serena and serving and the whole thing? Do you want someone who is in charge of training weeks and home base? Or do you want someone who's super high profile, or both? Getting someone super high profile to move to where you are is a different thing. So I'll be curious, but I don't think she has to be in a rush at all. Like her base level, we think she played badly the last 3 months, and she's still like 3 in the world, 4 in the world, 5, whatever she is. Like her bottom level is still pretty good. Like, so I don't think she has to be in a rush. I don't think she's going to go out this week and not know how to play. I think she's going to be fine. If anything, she's a master at just getting back to work.